This is clearly a high-stakes meeting between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump. And it's unclear exactly how the White House will paint this visit because, as the president rightfully once said, nobody knows what I'm going to do. But to try and crack the code a little bit and gain insight on this meeting of world leaders on the back of their joint success in Iran, we're joined by the former national security advisor to President Trump back in 2018 and 19, Ambassador John Bolton. Ambassador, thank you for being with us on I-24 News and taking the time to speak with us this evening.
Glad to be with you.
This is a victory lap. Many people are painting it as the heels of the success in Iran and the third time that Netanyahu is visiting the president in just 6 months. This is clearly significant in itself, but how much influence do you believe Netanyahu still has over Trump? Inside this room, who actually truly holds the power?
Well, I wouldn't call it a victory lap. I mean, that's what Trump may think, but the victory is still incomplete, to say the least. I think Netanyahu has a number of objectives here, not least of which is getting Trump to agree on some kind of mechanism between Israel and the United States to handle what's left of Iran's nuclear weapons program and any possibility of reviving it. Obviously maintaining air superiority over Iran. And then also the longer term question I hope they talk about is whether we should be helping the opposition inside Iran to overthrow the Ayatollahs, because if there's no regime change in Tehran, there's not going to be peace and stability in the Middle East at any point.
Well, you say that the Iran strikes, they were significant but not fatal to their nuclear program. So why exactly did the war end? The ceasefire was very abrupt, especially to those here in Israel. How could Iran even paint this to their version of a quote-unquote victory?
Well, Iran's propaganda is pretty good. So is Trump's. You know, he wanted a ceasefire because he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. He's not going to get it for solving the Russia-Ukraine war or the India-Pakistan flare-up a few months ago, or even bringing peace for a while between Rwanda and Congo. So he wanted a ceasefire because it suited his objectives. He had what he thought was a successful raid. He called the raid of the B-2s the total and complete obliteration of Iran's nuclear weapons program. There's only one person in the world who believes that, and that's Donald Trump, if he believes it. But he thought he had a good day, and he didn't want it any more complicated than that. This was not strategic thinking, and it stopped short of what we should have done.
Well, you mentioned the possibility of a Nobel Peace Prize. If President Trump is now also prioritizing maybe a Gaza ceasefire for political optics, the potential for some sort of a Nobel Prize, what does that mean for Israel's long-term security goals? Are they possibly at odds with Trump's ambitions?
Yeah, Trump doesn't think in long-term security objectives. He thinks about how to enhance his own reputation, and I think that's what's at stake here. Now, Netanyahu has a very delicate path to walk, but he's been able to do it before under even more difficult circumstances. But this will be a very consequential meeting. If Netanyahu's government still wants to achieve the objective of eliminating Hamas as a political and military force, you can't agree to a ceasefire with conditions that could prevent the Israeli Defense Forces from achieving that objective, much less stopping Iran from getting a nuclear weapon, which is the real existential threat for Israel.
So when it comes to Iran, then what kind of follow-up action do you think that Israel or the United States should be planning right now? And how long do they have to plan? Is time running out?
Well, I don't think it's running out, but right now, for all intents and purposes, Iran's air defenses are flattened. I'm sure they're doing everything they can with Russia, with China, with others to get more capabilities. We can't let that spring up. We have to keep total air superiority. And I think there are other nuclear targets that we should consider hitting. And perhaps most important of all, in an effort to see dissent in the top ranks of the regime and to encourage the enormous countrywide popular discontent, I think we should be talking to the opposition inside Iran, asking what resources they need, better communications, just assistance in networking around the country. There's no talk here of any American boots on the ground or anything like that. But when you combine the enormous popular discontent, I think the regime is weaker than at any point since 1979, and they've got an aging supreme leader that the actuarial tables will take care of at some point, and that could be the point of maximum stress for the regime itself.
Ambassador, you've cautioned that many of the past diplomatic efforts in the Middle East, they've crashed and burned. So given that, what would a truly successful Trump-Netanyahu meeting actually look like to you? What do you hope comes out of this meeting?
Well, a resolve that at least Israel can continue to police the Iranian nuclear weapons program and to be able to have freedom of action to move against it, even if U.S. forces are not involved. And I hope a better understanding on Trump's part of why, because Iran is the principal troublemaker in the Middle East, not the only troublemaker, I underline that, but the principal troublemaker, until the regime in Tehran changes, you can talk about a lot of things in the region, but there's no way they'll come true while the regime in Iran is still there interfering.
Ambassador John Bolton, thank you so much for being with us on I-24 News this evening and sharing your great insight.
Thanks for having me.